Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Update. We've got breaking news from Queensbury, New York, Montreal, Quebec, Agawam, Massachusetts, and everywhere where there are Six Flags parks today because it is Six Flags Announcement Day, August 31st, 2017. We've got all the announcements for the Six Flags chain of theme parks, some of which we're doing separate updates on. Of course, we already knew about the one at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. But Andy, we're going to go through every announcement very briefly here today, including the ones we already talked about, at large, like some of the larger editions. But we're going to go through everything on this nice little map here that Six Flags was nice enough to give us. And we're just going to go over everything as a whole. Our thoughts on the entire package, a little bit one by one. And we're also going to look at the world records and North American records and North American firsts that we were promised a couple months back. We were promised 5. It was world records or North American first, I think was the way it was phrased. So we were promised 5 of them. We're going to tell you how many we think we actually got once we go through all this. So we're going to start. If you've seen this big map that Six Flags put out of all the editions, if you've seen that and you have that up in front of you, we're going to start at 12 o'clock with Pandemonium at the Great Escape, and we're going to work our way clockwise, and we're going to end up ending with Six Flags Great America. So follow along if you have that map handy. Maybe we'll even put it up here at the beginning here. So we'll start with the Great Escape. In Queensbury, New York, we've got Pandemonium, which is just a little flat ride. It almost looks like a modern version of a Wipeout, where instead of facing, face-to-face, you're facing outward. It almost looks like a mix between a disco and a Wipeout. An interesting little flat ride. I don't know that I've seen one of these before. Have you?
I have not seen one. When I saw Pandemonium, because they're also, sitting in chairs that look like Larson Loop chairs, but they already have a Larson Loop there. So I was kind of confused, and then I saw the more of the renderings, and it became clear that this is a new, unless it's on the fair circuit, and I'm not a fair circuit guy, so I'm not really sure. I know they're creating a whole lot of new stuff as of late for the fair circuit, so maybe that this is something that's been out there and just hasn't made its way to a park, but here it's in a park now, so.
Yeah, so I mean, there's potential that this might be one of our North American firsts, because I don't know of a park that has one of these rides. If they do, it's certainly a small park that I haven't been to, or at least not recently. Yeah. So moving on, next is La Ronde in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and they're getting Carnaval en Folie, which is essentially it looks like a flat ride package. Just looks like a new themed area. We seem to be getting a Ferris wheel, a tilt-a-whirl, and then a scrambler. So we're seeing more of like a classic flat ride editions here. Not even really thrill rides, if you will. I guess you could argue the tilt-a-whirl and the scrambler. But we're kind of getting a standard roller coaster tycoon flat ride package here, if you will. Not a whole lot to be super excited here about, but we are getting additions to the flat ride collection, which I think could use expansion up at La Ronde, a park that both you and I have been to, and I thought that they were maybe a little bit skimpy on the flat rides, so I guess maybe not a bad thing to put in some of the classics, because these are some family flat rides, to be honest.
Yeah, and maybe this is a park that always is the question mark, that they're pulling out their stand-up ride. Is this somewhere they're going to invest in the future? Is this somewhere that, because of the Canadian restrictions, that's just kind of like a throwaway? We really don't know. They haven't been investing very heavily the last few years here at all.
No, they haven't. So it'd be interesting to see. They've had a couple of down years. I think they got Vampire Backwards was their addition a year or two ago. So it'll be interesting to see if La Ronde might be slated for something big here. Moving on to Agawam, Massachusetts, home of Six Flags New England, we are getting Harley Quinn Spinsanity. And you might ask, Andy, which Harley Quinn Spinsanity is this? You might ask.
You might, because there's quite a few now, and there's quite a few Harley Quinn rides, more so than we've ever had.
And there's quite a few Zamperla Giant Discoveries in the Six Flags chain, most of which with different names. That's what this Harley Quinn Spinsanity will be. We've seen the Tilt-A-Whirl. We've seen the Troika. We see this new crazy flat ride that we're going to talk about at Six Flags Over Texas. This Harley Quinn Spinsanity is going to be a Zamperla Giant Discovery.
Which is a nice addition. I've always loved Max Air. And I've been on, this version at other places like at Kennywood with Black Widow, and it's a fine version of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of fun. So I think it's not a bad thing for every park to have one of those.
No, and Six Flags New England is a park that has gotten some pretty good additions recently. We've seen in the last 5 years, we've seen New England Sky Screamer, we've seen Wicked Cyclone, we've seen a Larson Loop and the retrofit Back to Superman the ride. We got Joker this year, and we've seen some water park stuff in there as well. And now we're getting Harley Quinn Spin Century. So not a bad 5 years for Six Flags New England in the last 5 years.
Not at all.
To be complete, for not really having a whole lot of big thrill ride competition in New England. They've had some good years recently. Moving on to Jackson, New Jersey, and Six Flags Great Adventure, Cyborg Cyber Spin, this brand new North American first, maybe a world's first, depending on who's really doing it. They claim it's a world's first based on the marketing campaign they did leading up to this. This is a ride that we did a separate update on, so we're not going to really touch on this, but certainly this being my closest Six Flags park, one that I'm really excited for. Definitely a cool little flat ride, or a big flat ride going in here to Six Flags Great Adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the very least, it's a North American first, so we know that. So I don't care what the email said, but we know that there's not one in North America anywhere. So we know that at the very least. And like I said, we knew this 2 weeks ago, so we can move on.
Right. If you've listened to the folks on this show, then you knew that this was happening 2 weeks ago. So if we count Pandemonium at Great Escape and then Cyborg Cyberspin, we have 2 of those record/North American firsts. Again, we're not sure on Pandemonium there, so maybe 2 with an asterisk.
Yeah.
Moving on to Six Flags America in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, we got the Wahoo River, which is their new Lazy River. Now, this is one that a lot of people were talking about because their teaser campaign involved the Grim Reaper visiting some different sites, both in the dry park and the water park. It visited the Penguins Blizzard River, which is a water ride in the dry park that is oftentimes not open from my experience. Also visited Roar, the roller coaster that many thought might be pegged for an RMC Iron Horse, in the same vein that the Roar at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom a few years ago was done. And then it also visited 2 locations in the water park, a smaller water park complex, and then also their, I think it's Castaway Creek, if I'm remembering without looking it up, their previous Lazy River. The Grim Reaper visited those 4 locations. And, the whole talk of whatever, the first thing it touches is the one that goes away. And Castaway Creek is the one that he ends up touching first. And I believe Castaway Creek is going away. And the Wahoo River is coming in its place. So they're replacing a Lazy River with, I have to be honest, I haven't been to the water park at Six Flags America, so I don't know it very well. But it seems like the Lazy River is going away for a new Lazy River. Is that?
Well, they're calling it an adventure river. So if you've ever been to Cedar Point, something more like like the secondary river they have there.
Kind of like the Hubba Highway at a water country type of thing.
Yeah, it's got some water features. It's got some rock work. It shoots stuff at you. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on that is just a little bit more beyond a Lazy River. The Renegade River at Cedar Point has like they even have like a wave section of it. I don't know if that's going to have this, but there's definitely more action than your typical Lazy River. So this one I thought was kind of confusing because they were teasing so much, and I think the problem is when parks start teasing, people automatically expect something average, and this kind of seems like a little bit of a letdown overall.
Especially since they teased the whole Roar thing. People automatically assume that was going RMC, which is not the case. So in my book, this one's a little bit of a disappointment. And again, Six Flags America not getting a major addition again. So that, at least not for the dry park and not for the roller coaster fans. So maybe a little bit of a disappointment here for Six Flags America. Moving on to Austell, Georgia, and Six Flags Over Georgia, probably the one that most people were on early this morning. The Twisted Cyclone, which will be the RMC Iron Horse version of the Georgia Cyclone. And again, this is one that early this morning, it's already up on YouTube, even as we're recording this. Our thoughts on Twisted Cyclone, and
I got more thoughts, Danny. I got more thoughts.
Uh-oh.
You thought you were going to get away here. but let me say this. The reaction I've seen to Twisted Cyclone
I'm
has been
very
ridiculous.
disappointed. It
has
is.
been absolutely ridiculous. That people are like, oh, this is by far going to be the worst RMC. Oh, it looks like trash. What are you looking at? It looks like every other
These are the same people that 2 weeks ago and 2 months ago were clamoring. Sorry, my printer almost fell off the top of my desk here. I'm getting so angry. These are the same people that 2 months ago were bitching and moaning and everything that Georgia Cyclone needed to be RMC'd. That was the only thing they could do with it. And people made fun of me. People made fun of me for making a special trip to go down and ride the Georgia Cyclone again. And now that they get exactly what they wanted, they're pissed off.
They're pissed off. They don't like it. And the problem is it looks like every other RMC. Literally, the only difference here is, the only difference between the other smaller RMCs is there's about 600 feet less of track. And Danny, you know my opinion on the smaller RMCs. I feel that they all die at the end. You can post as many comments as you want down there telling me how you had great rides on Wicked Cyclone and how the new wheels changed Storm Chaser and how it's still flying. All these RMCs are flying through the track. You can post all you want. I've been on them. I've ridden them myself. Wicked Cyclone multiple times, different seasons, different times of seasons, and never once did I fly through the track at the end. Every time I felt like I was going to valley. So you can post all you want. I don't believe you. So when I'm telling you here, this 600 feet less of track is not going to hurt anybody. It's actually going to probably lead to a ride that is thrilling from start to finish. It's not going to have a chance to die at the end because there's 600 feet less of track. And the people who are saying this looks terrible, I don't understand you. You're complete idiots. I'm sorry.
Well, consider the mic dropped because I'm very excited for Twisted Cyclone. Is it shorter than the other RMCs? Yes, I'm not arguing that fact. I don't think that necessarily means it's going to be a worse ride than any of the other ones. To me, it really reminds. If you look at Goliath at Six Flags Great America, this looks like that, but about half the size. That's really kind of what it reminds me of. It's got some of the same.
And mind you, Goliath is one of the better RMCs out there. Goliath, if you put the wood and steel together, Goliath is towards the top of the pack. It's better than Twisted Colossus. It's better than Wicked Cyclone. It's better than Storm Chaser. So just because it's shorter doesn't mean that it's not going to be as good. We actually have to see the ride in action. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe it is a bad ride. I don't know. But it's not going to be a bad ride because of what's on this POV or how short it is. That's not going to make it a bad ride.
Yeah, if this isn't a good RMC, it's not going to be because of the length. Because Outlaw Run in terms of elements has about the same number of elements, and nobody has any problems with Outlaw Run. So if you're arguing that this is going to be a terrible coaster because of the length, then
stop writing coasters.
Yeah,
or better yet, just stop commenting on these shows here. Just stop.
No, I think that's all that needs to be said there for sure. But interestingly enough, I don't believe this is a record or a North American first in any way. I don't think we're seeing anything here. So really, probably the biggest attraction of the bunch is not considered one of those, which is interesting
and shocking too. That you can make an attraction. And most normal people can get excited by it, and you don't have to have a world's first or record tied to it. So there you go.
Yeah, isn't that funny how that seems?
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's the reason why they make all these stupid records is because it impresses simpletons.
It's very possible. Speaking of impressing the simpletons, we move on to Arlington, Texas, where we have another Harley Quinn Spinsanity, which has the same name as a ride we've already talked about, but in fact is the same ride as a different ride that we've already talked about. It's the same as Cyborg Cyber Spin at Six Flags Great Adventure. It is one of these cube spinning flat rides, and Andy, you and I talked about when we talked about Cyborg and Harley Quinn Spinsanity, on an earlier update that we pointed out that this has the exact same name as a flat ride that is in the same section of the park. Who knows how they're going to handle that one? We talked about that on the other show. If you want to hear more of our thoughts on that one, then go right ahead and watch the Cyborg.
Possibly also, though, you would count this one as a World's or North American first?
Yes. So that's the interesting thing. Are we kind of lumping Cyborg and Harley Quinn together here?
I don't know.
So if we're not, then if we include Great Escape, then we're up to 3. So I would say we're at a maximum of 3 with an asterisk, but we're at a minimum of 1. Because if the Pandemonium at Great Escape is not a record or North American first, then you combine this and Cyborg, then we would still only be at 1. So we're almost halfway through here, and we've only got to 1 of the 5 if you look at it that way. But hold in your seats for a second because we're about to get the stuff.
Yeah, we're about to hit them.
All right, so here we go. Moving on to San Antonio, Texas. A couple hours down the road. Of course, we have Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster. We've known about this for a few weeks now. The world's first, or North American first, as they're calling it. Either way, single rail coaster. The RMC Raptor, I guess, production model, if you will, because we know we're getting a mirror image clone at California's Great America. We've talked about this for a couple weeks now, but this would definitely be one of these North American first, according to the park. So we definitely have 2, maybe have as many as 4 now with Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster. Speaking of Wonder Woman in the Southwest, if you go down to Mexico City, Six Flags Mexico is getting the Wonder Woman coaster. So a little bit of, not much of a subtitle here. Wonder Woman coaster is an SNS/RMC 4D free fly coaster. As we predicted quite a bit ago, we thought that between La Ronde and Six Flags Mexico, at least one of them would get a free fly, and it would be the first 4D free fly coaster in Canada, or the first 4D fly coaster in Mexico, Latin America, whatever you want to call it. So that would be now a third definite North American first, because we've got the first 4D free fly coaster in Mexico, to my knowledge. And then we've also, we could have as many as 5 if you're counting Pandemonium and the 2 Cube rides separately.
Yeah.
So moving on now. Did you have any thoughts on Wonder Woman as 4D free fly at Six Flags Mexico? I mean,
no,
we talked about it when if they added one of these, they would have to go elsewhere because the previous names have been Batman and Joker, and they already have 2 of those. So we wondered where they might go with the name, and it turns out they're going Wonder Woman.
And I think it's interesting that, even with Batman, it had both sides were the same color. The Jokers kind of started marketing, the 2 sides as 2, different experiences, but now they're going back to, because you really don't get to choose on the Joker either. So even though there's all these signs that say choose Team Green or choose Team Purple, when you get up to the ride op, he basically funnels you to one of the 2 sides based on what's open. So there's not a lot of choice going on. So maybe they just said, you know what, we'll just go back to calling it, and coloring both sides the same color, which I'm fine with.
Yeah, that's fine. So, interesting color scheme on the supports, though, the red, white, and blue.
I like it.
Yeah, so we'll see how that turns out. So moving on to Valencia, California, and Six Flags Magic Mountain, we've got CraZanity, which is again another Zamperla Giant Discovery, but it is supposedly larger than the others. They're claiming it is the largest pendulum ride in the world.
Yeah.
At 170 feet, I think is the advertised height. Again, I was on my phone most of the day, so I'm only now getting to see these on the computer screen. But this would be a number 4 in terms of records or North Americans firsts. So all of a sudden we're seeing that number climb at least 4, possibly as many as 6 again. So I think Magic Mountain has always needed flat rides. They've got a ton of coasters. They got Metropolis, so they've started to, to add things other than coasters. I think this is a good addition here. Sort of in the same vein as Magic Mountain has done, doing, tallest, fastest, of its kind, whatever. It's okay, fine.
This one's a little bit odd for a number of different reasons. One, a lot of people weren't really predicting this. There wasn't a lot of teasers, but some people were predicting maybe a coaster this year because it's been a while. Twisted Colossus was the last coaster, and that wasn't even, a huge addition. So this one kind of came out of left field. It obviously fits the bill with the world record breaker. I think also people are confused by the name here, CraZanity.
Yeah, it's like we've got all these DC branded things, and then Great Escape doesn't tend to do a lot of superhero stuff, so the Pandemonium seems to make sense there. The Twisted Cyclone, obviously, but this is like the one major big park that does the DC branding that doesn't have a DC branded ride,
and it almost sounds like Spin Sanity, but it's CraZanity. Like I don't know if I like the name. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not a huge fan of this name.
Seems like an odd move.
It's an odd name, an odd color scheme. Everything about it is a little weird. It's like I said, it's gonna be a fine ride. I just think there's a lot of weirdness going on there. So I don't know.
Yep. So we're up to the 4, possibly as many as few as 4, as many as 6 record breakers or North American firsts as we get to the last few here. Waterworld in Concord, California. We've got Splashwater Island, water park. Great. I don't know a whole lot about the place.
I got news for you. I didn't even know they owned this park up until this morning.
Because I don't recall this being in previous announcements. I don't know if this was was this the new one they got, or I think it's the new one they acquired.
Well, I also find it interesting that there's no other water parks announcing here. That we know there's the other water park in Atlanta across the city.
We've got Whitewater down the street. Yep.
They just bought the new water park in Mexico.
They didn't announce anything for Waxtepec either.
Yeah, they just opened it, so maybe they figured that they don't have to put anything new because it's brand new.
Yeah,
but definitely
we're seeing this one. We talked about Six Flags America getting the Wahoo River, and then we'll see Six Flags St. Louis in a second.
Yeah.
Other than that, no water park additions this year.
Yeah, especially the standalone water parks. This is the only one that is getting, which I'm fine with. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day,
I'm just saying it's weird. So
yeah, it is. Especially since they advertise every park is getting something new, and it seems like they've missed a couple. But that's all right. So moving on now to Six Flags Discovery Kingdom in Vallejo, California, we got the Harley Quinn Crazy Coaster, which, again, we did another separate update on this one. If you want to take a look at that one, go ahead over. We've got a lot of thoughts on this one. This is the Skyline Attractions Skywarp, which seems to be manufactured with the RMC Raptor track or T-Rex track. It's one of the two, or possibly maybe a third different scale. We don't know. It does appear to be of that make, and we know that RMC has said that they are manufacturing the track for those. So again, this is another North American's first. This is a world's first, actually, because none of these built yet. So we've got our magic number 5 between the records and the North American first. So we definitely have at least 5. You could make the argument that there's 6 or 7, again, as we talked about, and we've still got 2 attractions left to go over. So let's see where that lands us. If we go to Six Flags St. Louis and I guess Eureka, Missouri is the name of the town there. We've got the Typhoon Twister, which is a water park edition. We've got the Colossal Curl style edition here, tube slide with a bowl, and then kind of that, that high wall water slide. Holiday World has one. Is this what Hyena Falls is at Holiday World? I think that's what this is.
I think so.
Or it's part of Hyena Falls anyways. Again, like we said, with Splashwater Island at Waterworld Concord. Not big water park guys over here. So, fine. But this is all Six Flags St. Louis is getting. So, again, if you're in Missouri and this is your home Six Flags park, you're not getting a whole lot this year again. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're getting another shaft, but just the water park edition here. So, moving on to the final. Last but not least,
the piece de resistance, as they say in France.
In Gurnee, Illinois, it's Six Flags Great America. I'd love to tell you the name of this ride, but we don't know what it is, and I'll share my theory on that in just a second. But it is the world's largest Larson Loop coaster, according to the press release here at Six Flags Great America. Now, this is, as rumored, a larger than normal Larson Loop ride. We talked about this in some updates, and there was some speculation that we're getting a 110-foot tall or 100-foot tall version as opposed to the 75-foot version. They are calling this the world's largest, so this is a world record. So at the very minimum, you and I count 6 world records or North American firsts, and as many as 8, again, depending on how you go with some of those other flat rides. So we got more than 5. We were told we were getting 5. We're getting more than that, definitely. We're getting at least 1 more than that, possibly 3 more than that. So I'm confused as to what we were told, because it seems like we were lied to. Maybe the Skywarp was a last-minute thing. I don't know.
Well, and that's really the thing there is do you think the Skywarp, and we didn't really talk about this on the Skywarp show, do you think they bought it after July 1st? And now they're jumping the gun like they did with
Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman, I guess, if you believe that. I don't know. So
maybe that's what's going on here.
Can you just buy a ride in a month and make that decision? Like
a ride like that, you probably could. I mean, it takes up next to no land. It's a very thin plot of land. All you got to do is cut out a thin little space.
Yeah.
So I guess in theory you could just put it like right along the edge of the park somewhere if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Going to Six Flags Great America, a lot of people on Twitter were complaining like, "Oh, you announce a world's largest Larson Loop with a world record breaker, and you call it a coaster when it's not a coaster, and then you don't even give it a name." Well, hold on a second, because I saw that a couple people, and I responded to those people. Typically, when I see stupid things on Twitter and Facebook, I don't always respond to them right away, but these I felt I had to. As we talked about in the King Chaos video a couple weeks ago, we talked about that it seemed like there was some sort of theme going on here with like a rescue type hurricane theme. And we need to consider what's going on down in Texas right now, which is awful, right? Yeah. There's, tremendous loss of life, tremendous damage. A lot of people's lives are never going to be the same. Terrible tragedy, right? A lot of talk that this was going to be named Hurricane Force 5 because we've seen that name used before. At Six Flags Fiesta Texas, we saw it for I think it was a disco.
Yeah, it's the disco.
So let's be a little bit sensitive here. And this, I'm not getting into the whole political thing here because that's not what we do here. But we need to be a little bit sensitive that while this is going on and while there's all these efforts to try and help these people and to rescue people, announcing a ride to be named Hurricane Force 5 is probably not the best thing to do.
Yeah.
It's not in that area. Probably not the best thing to do right now for something that's getting national attention. So that may be why we didn't get a name. Now, I don't know if that's what they're still going to call it, and they will announce that later. We've seen something like this with Valraven. The Valraven announcement got postponed when there was the death that occurred at the park. And people argue whether or not that was just because the park didn't want the media attention or if it had to do with the Valraven theme. They didn't change the name.
No.
So, there's that. Then we all know the history behind the Mantis name and Banshee originally at Cedar Point. We all know that story. So I don't know if it is going to be Hurricane Force 5 and they're going to announce that name later, or maybe it'll just show up and they won't make a big deal about the name. Or there were some thoughts that maybe that never was going to be the name and maybe it's going to be a contest. I don't know, though. That's not really a Six Flags type thing to do. Or if they're deciding to change the name from – right. So they've done that on the Rebirth for a new attraction. I can't remember the last time they really did something like that. Or they are changing the name from Hurricane Force 5, and just because it happened this week – they haven't decided on a new name and they will announce it later. The reason I think it's not that is because we do see, like in Twisted Cyclone, we do see the tornadoes in the background. Yeah. So that makes me think it has some sort of storm theme, which makes me think that this was going to be called Hurricane Force 5, as you and I speculated a couple weeks ago. But for the folks who are upset that we didn't get a name about this, give it an extra second. Give an extra second to think about why we may not have gotten a name here.
And the other thing that's interesting is in the descriptions here for this ride, it does say Mardi Gras is still staying there. So we do know that we speculated that maybe Mardi Gras was leaving. They would expand Gotham and make a whole Gotham City area here. Mm-hmm. From the description, that is not happening. Mardi Gras is staying, and then that would probably fit in. I don't know if Hurricane Force 5 fits into Mardi Gras really well either, to be honest with you, Danny. It's
probably not, actually. That's probably just as poor of a decision to make the announcement. So I don't know. It's possible that they haven't decided on a name. Maybe this was a last-minute thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. What could you call it? Mardi Gras beads, the coaster? I mean, it's like a giant necklace. I don't know.
They have what's the one in America called? It's called
the Bourbon Street Fireball. So did they go like that route? I guess that's an option for sure. But there's a lot of things to consider here. But if you're upset that we didn't get a name for Larson Looper and that's what you're pissed off about, and that's why you're letting these announcements be ruined, then fine by me. Go ahead. But Andy, your thoughts as a whole on Six Flags, knowing that we do have at least 6 world records or North American firsts, which as cheesy as they may be or as corny as they may be, I personally think the best edition of the group is not any of those. I think Twisted Cyclone is probably the one that I'm looking most forward to, maybe followed up by that Cyborg Flat Rides, just because it's so close to me and I know I will get to ride it. And then maybe Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster and Harley Quinn Crazy Coaster. Maybe those two are coming in third for me.
I'm looking at this and it just feels like a Six Flags announcement to me that there's nothing, like, people are getting really upset on social media and be like, oh, this is terrible, da da da. There's nothing here that really stands out to me that's hugely different from previous years. I think the biggest difference between this year and last year is the lack of the Justice League rides, which I think a lot of people were excited for because they're really good rides, really good dark rides. So maybe the lack of Justice League makes this look not as good.
That must be it, because last year, I think this year is far superior to last year, because last year we didn't get any unique coasters. We got 3 free flies at parks that you could argue didn't really need them and could have gotten something better. Now, we did get the 3 Metropolis rides at 3 big parks: Six Flags Over Georgia, Six Flags Magic Mountain, and Six Flags Great Adventure. Maybe the first 3 parks that a ride like that ought to go in. So maybe that's what people are upset about. But when you look at it, we're getting a small RMC, which is going to be a good ride. We're getting the Wonder Woman single rail, which is going to be a good ride. We're getting a free fly coaster, which is okay, and we're getting quite a few good flat rides. I mean, we're getting 2 brand new flat rides we've never seen before, one of which is going into 2 different parks, so I guess you could call that 3. We're getting 2 giant discoveries, which are very good flat rides. Speaking from experience, we're getting the Larson Loop at Great America. We're getting a decent flat ride at Great America. I don't know what people are so upset about here.
Well, I take exception to what you just said there. I count 4, maybe 5 new credits, here, roller coaster credits, which I think is amazing. So, the Skywarp is the jury's still out on it.
So 18 roller coasters coming to Six Flags Parks in 2018, according to Andy Rabarchek.
Maybe. Everyone gets a Skywarp. Hey, why not?
No, but honestly, I think this is a solid year. I don't think it lines up with 2015, where we got some Justice Leagues, and then also got the 2 RMCs with Twisted Colossus and Wicked Cyclone. I don't think it's quite on that level, but I think this is very, very solid for 2018, and certainly much better than the 2017.
I've seen people say they're canceling their passes over this. There's no reason to cancel your pass.
No. The people who are doing that, I'm sorry, the people who are doing that are the people who live in the Midwest and only go to Great America and Six Flags St. Louis and are pissed off that St. Louis.
And that's fine.
Are pissed off that Great America is getting a Larson Loop and they're calling it a world record breaking roller coaster. Those are the people that are canceling their passes, because those are the people that are upset. I'm sorry, because being on the East Coast here, I've got basically a never before seen flat ride coming to Great Adventure. I've got a really good flat ride coming to New England, and I've got an RMC coming to Six Flags Over Georgia. Those are 3 very good ride editions for the East Coast folks. Yeah. I'm sorry. I really like the Six Flags editions this year.
I think they're pretty good. There's nothing I'm a little. I like the flat rides. I like the coasters. So there's nothing I can hate here. There's just nothing. I
still think Cedar Fair is better. I think Cedar Fair's got the better. I think Cedar Fair has the edge for the 2018 rides.
Does it? Does it though?
I think so.
Steel Vengeance and Twisted Timbers it really set that apart. But if you look at the rest of what Cedar Fair got, Cedar Fair isn't. You take out the two big coasters.
Cedar Fair has the better coasters.
Yeah.
Cedar Fair has the better coasters. I think Six Flags probably has the better flat rides.
Oh, absolutely.
Cedar Fair
got nothing. They got a bunch of kiddie rides across the board.
So I think all things considered, it's probably close to a wash. But I mean, we care most about the coasters. So at the end of the day, I think Steel Bend and Twisted Timbers in particular. Definitely, I think you could probably call Twisted Timbers and Twisted Cyclone a wash if you want, and you could call Golden Lasso Coaster and Railblazer a wash. So then I guess the debate comes down to how much does Steel Vengeance kind of stick above some of the other, I think it's, it definitely outweighs the other coaster rides here. So I think that's kind of
Plus you got hang time too.
And you've got hang time there too. So I keep forgetting that we got hang time there because it was announced, much later than the others. But I think
by about 4 hours, Danny.
Yeah. Well, and we were so pissed off that night because we were lied to that night.
Yeah.
So we kind of forgot about hang time for a little bit.
Seems to be the theme of the year here.
Well, yes, 2018, the year of the PR lies, because we've seen quite a few of them. Because not only did Cedar Fair lie about being a company, whatever that they work with in recent history or whatever, Six Flags lied and said that we're getting 5 world records for North American first when we count anywhere from 6 to 8, depending on how you slice it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we anticipated that 2017 was a down year for the parks. We thought 2018 would be a big year. Cedar Fair, it's a big year for 2018 for Cedar Fair. And Six Flags, I would consider this a pretty big year considering some of the recent occurrences with the Six Flags. I would consider 2018 big for them as well. So we'll see what some of the other parks got going on. Some of the smaller parks still have to make some announcements. So I don't think we're quite done yet. But 2018 is looking like a really good year.
Yeah. So, as always, thanks for joining us here on COASTER-net Update. If anything else comes up over the next few weeks with any of the other parks, we'll be sure to let you in on what's going on. But as always, I am Andy Barchak from Chicago, Illinois.
And Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
And right on, Ride Warriors.
See you next time, guys.